All right, let's jump right in. A ton of PMP candidates get this wrong. They think mastering procurement is all about memorizing terms, but that's a huge mistake. The exam isn't just going to ask you, hey, what's a fixed price contract? No way. It's going to test you on navigating those really tricky, high stakes situations where what the project needs crashes right into what the contract allows. So today, we're going to break down those exact traps. We're moving past the textbook definitions and into the real world logic that you actually need to pass this thing. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to dig into why procurement is, well, so darn complex. Then we'll shine a big bright light on the most common exam traps people fall into. After that, we'll build a solid professional framework you can use to solve these problems. And we'll wrap it all up with the core principles you've just got to have locked in. Okay, let's talk about the hidden complexity here. I mean, why is it that someone can nail all the procurement formulas, but then completely bomb a situational question about a vendor dispute? It's a great question, right? Well, it all boils down to one critical, and I mean critical, misunderstanding. And that misunderstanding? It's what I call the authority trap. Seriously, this is the root cause of so many wrong answers on the exam. It's this idea that as the project manager, your word is law. But here's the thing. Once that contract is signed, the entire rulebook changes. The game is completely different. And this visual here really shows you what's going on. See, you're not just playing by one set of rules anymore. Your project management plan? Nope. You're suddenly in what we call a dual governance environment. You've got this legal contract, and it's like a second rulebook. And let me tell you, it's often the more powerful one. Your authority, it's now shared, and a lot of the time, it's completely overruled by what's written in that contract and by the people who own it. Okay, so now that we've got that foundation laid, let's start digging into the specific mental mistakes that just lead people straight into those exam traps. These are the exact patterns PMI wants to see if you can spot, and more importantly, if you can avoid. The first big one is something I call informality bias. It's that voice in your head that says, don't worry about it, we'll fix the paperwork later, just keep the work moving. We've all felt that temptation, right? But the PMP way of thinking is all about legal formalism. The contract, that is your single source of truth, period. Any change, any little agreement, any instruction, it has to be formally documented. Because if it's not in writing, then as far as the exam and the real world are concerned, it might as well have never happened. In this case study, wow, it just perfectly shows the danger. So picture this. You're managing a high-rise tower project, and you realize the scope for backup generators was completely missed. So the PM goes to the contractor and says, hey, just do the work. I promise I'll make sure you get paid. That's a classic verbal authorization. So what's the fallout? Well, procurement rejects the invoice, right? Because there's no formal change order. The vendor, understandably, stops all work. And just like that, the entire project is at risk. The PM thought they were taking a helpful shortcut, but what they really did was create a massive project-killing dispute. So here's the absolute key takeaway, and this is a direct exam insight for you. When a question asks, what should the PM have done first, the answer is almost always the same. Before anyone touches a single tool, before a single wire is run, you have to analyze the impact of that change, and then you follow the formal change request process. It's that simple. Process first, work second. Every single time. This brings us right to what's called the authority paradox. And trust me, the PMP exam is going to test you on this separation of duties. Think of it this way. You, the project manager, you're the technical lead. You manage the what and the when. You own that statement of work. But the contracting officer, they hold the legal authority. They manage the how, the actual legal agreement. So for vendors underperforming, your job isn't to fire them. Your job is to document everything, build the case, and hand it over to the person who has the actual legal power to enforce the contract. Okay, so we've spent a good bit of time looking at the problems and the traps. Now let's flip the script and talk about the solution. What we need are clear, systematic models you can use when you're under pressure to make the right call every single time. So here it is. This is your go-to mental model for any procurement question you face. It's a simple 3-step analysis. Step 1, identify the contract type. Is it fixed price, where the vendor's on the hook for risk, or is it cost-reimbursable, where you are? That one detail changes everything. Step 2, what phase are you in? Your actions during execution are totally different from your actions during closing. And finally, step 3, clarify the authority. Is the question about the PM's role or the contracting officer's role? If you can run through these 3 steps, you'll cut right through all the distracting details in the question. Okay,
Let's run through a few more common traps you'll see. First is the mindset trap. This is where you feel like you need to help a vendor who's struggling on a fixed price contract. Just remember, they signed up for that price, they accepted that risk. It's not your job to bail them out. Next, the terminology trap. People mix up inspection and audit all the time. Inspection is for the deliverable itself. Does it work? And audit is for the process. Did we follow the right steps? Big difference. And lastly, the closure trap. So many people forget this. Even if a project gets canceled, you must formally close out every single contract. It is not optional.
So, what happens when a dispute just can't be avoided? Well, PMI wants you to know the alternative dispute resolution hierarchy, and it's pretty straightforward. Level 1, the best place to start, is always negotiation. Sit down, talk it out, find a win-win. If that doesn't work, you can escalate to mediation or arbitration. The absolute last resort, the place you really don't want to go, is litigation. So on the exam, if you see an option to jump straight to calling the lawyers, that's almost guaranteed to be the wrong answer. All right, let's bring this all home. We're going to take everything we've talked about and boil it down into the core principles you really need to internalize. This isn't just about passing a test. This is about thinking like a true procurement professional. Think of these 7 principles as your North Star. Number 1, always follow the formal process. 2, respect the role boundaries, know your lane, and stay in it. 3, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. Simple as that. 4, the contract is the law. 5, let risk drive your contract choice. 6, negotiation is always your first move. And 7, closure isn't optional, it's mandatory. You've got to burn these into your brain. So there you have it. We've just built up a really solid defensive toolkit to help you spot and avoid the most common procurement traps. And in our next explainer, we're going to pull all of this together. It's going to be a final high-speed review session to make absolutely sure you're ready to go in and just dominate this part of the exam. And I'll leave you with this question to think about. Where is your project's biggest risk, really? Is it buried in the fine print of some contract? Or is it in your own understanding of how to handle it? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.